Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Yeah, so I had made a previous video called How to Sit In and Win, and I'm going back on that video and making this one called How to Sit In and Lose, because you can't just do one thing at the beginning of the race and hope it works out for the entire race, as I've learned. The reason I bring up this sort of style of sitting in is because I'm a racer who was very proactive at the front when I began, and it limited me to being dropped when I first started racing, to then not having a sprint for the final. So I kept trying to be in the front at like my earlier races in Manhattan Beach 2022, and then like this year at Milliken, just because it is a safer place to be. The lines are better and you can react to breakaways. But at those times, I never had the fitness to be part of anything consequential or influential. I was still following back the lead guys, and I was using up so much energy that when it came time to get to the sprint finish, I didn't have it. So those were like my first dozen races, and I've recorded a lot of those. They're the older ones, and after that, I talked to a few folks, and I, obviously just thought for myself, like, what if I just sat in, dude? Like you've been sort of being in the front because you're nervous, and then you're also just a antsy, like you want to be part of this and you want to direct and you want to race. It's bike racing, it makes sense. But what if you just didn't do that? And what if you just sat in and conserved as much as you could? And that was like a hard thing for me to do. And so there are racers that I race with that I want them to try that if they are the type of person who just never sits in and they burn up all the time. Like, just tell your team or tell yourself, like, just this once at a training ride. You don't have to blow it on a Sunday race or whatever, but like at Eldo or something, just say, guys, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to sit in and just try to have that discipline just to see how it feels, just so you know. And breaks might get away. At least see what kind of sprint you have, see how much energy you have, and just that feeling of watching and waiting and conserving is important to understand. So you have to try different things. You can't just do one thing over and over again and expect different results. For the people who just only sit in and draft and have never been off the front, I encourage you to attack, because what are you doing out there? And again, if it's simply fitness and you're just doing your best to like ride this train, then you just work on your training, and then you'll get there one day. But if you have if I'm talking to sprinters, basically like dedicated sprinters, but apparently I'm a sprinter too, not really, but if you have what it takes and you're just waiting for the last bit and a breakaway's already gone, what's the point of sprinting for third or fourth or fifth? It's just like the race is over. So even a sprinter can have that ability to pull back attacks, be influential. So if you're somebody who typically sits in but you have good fitness, I challenge you to be off the front, pull back attacks, and get a more well-rounded riding style. I'm always going to be one who's going to do everything. I'm going to try to learn breakaways. I'm going to try to learn how to sprint the best. I'm going to try to do the attacks. Like, I'm just that person in life. I wear every single hat. I've done it throughout my career. I rock with tons of different crowds, so I just do it all. And, some people will say jack of all trades, master of none, whatever. That's just who I am. I just have to be completely well-rounded. It's just worked for me in my life, and I'm not ever going to say I'm a sprinter, I'm a climber, I'm a this, I'm a that. I have all of it. I do it all equally bad. I do it all equally good. So, take it for what it is. And I like that. And so that's what you're going to get from me is well-rounded. Work on your weaknesses. Don't just do the same thing over and over again. Try different things. Have the humility to fail. That's another thing that I'm really big on, is failing quickly. Just like the tech industry, you just want to fail as fast as you can. You just want to like get things out of the way. Trial and error. Okay, that didn't work. Next. That didn't work. Next. Have the humility to lose. Even if you start winning, like I'm like, oh God, what if I don't show up on the podium every time? It's like, just don't worry about it. Just go out and fail and figure out what works and what doesn't. Failure is the best teacher. I like failing in that way where I know at least that doesn't work and I can start crossing things off the list. Obviously, if you just continually fail forever, you don't feel great about yourself, but you'll get there. It'll figure itself out. If you find one little trick and that trick kind of works sometimes and doesn't work other times. You need more than just that. So anyway, how to sit in and lose, that's the video coming up. Don't just sit in, doesn't work every time. Learn how much time you need to recover and then get back out there and be influential in the race. All right, here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back to CritDad. Here we are on May 9th of this year, 2023, Eldorado Race Series, Long Beach, Tuesday nights, 5:30, Cat 45. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you will have seen that I finally got that top spot on the podium. And leading up to that was a lot more consistent efforts of getting a lot of third places and then a second place. And I began to finally put the pieces together. But in this race, we are in the experimental phases of CritDad. I was still just seeing if I could, try one tactic at a time to see what I could learn from it. And that's what the intro is all about, is like, well, what happens when you sit in? What happens when you attack? Eventually, it is a balance of all the different skills that you need in a bike race. But in this one, I'm just sitting in, letting everybody else cover the attacks, and it doesn't work out. A breakaway gets away, and I get super disappointed that I could have caught it. But I think this is one of the riders here, Mr. William Patrick Sorry in the Mike's Bikes kit. If somebody's got a Mike's Bikes kit, that's kind of a red flag. Like, probably gonna follow that guy next time. And yeah, man, he took this one, no biggie. But yeah, like I said, I was super disappointed not to have followed that attack out. I was just trying new stuff, and it was such a disappointment to me that I never ever race this way again. When I go out to race, I am putting in the work and I am watching for riders off the front, and I learned that about myself going through a phase of sitting in. So hey, you got to try different things. If you try the same thing every race and you show up expecting different results, it's not going to work. So if every race you sit in and you get random results every time, you got to start trying to attack. And vice versa, if you're off the front all the time attacking and blowing up and you have nothing for the final sprint, you got to try sitting in sometimes. And I go for the most polarized opposites. I'll sit in the entire race or I'll attack the entire race. That's sort of what you're seeing in these videos. But a balance is what matters. You have to learn when to conserve. You have to learn when to attack. And once you get all those pieces together, hopefully you're then in the right position for the final. And then you have to learn about sprinting. And until I was able to put all those pieces together, I was kind of showing up to races just, I would say, like gambling. Like, well, let's see what happens this time. And I was just reacting to a lot of the other riders. A lot of the races that I used to do, I had some fitness, but it was mostly like, let's just see, maybe I get a top 10, maybe I get a top 5, like roll the dice. And I was pretty much at the whim of the riders in the front who were dictating or directing the race. And like I said, if you see my Instagram, I finally pulled off the win, and that wasn't by chance, it was by design. And it was because I had then, for the last 6 races, had been influential in directing and learning how to attack and no longer being reactive. So in the videos up until now in the next one, there are a lot of reactive racing. So what I'm talking about is you go out and you wait for someone else to attack and then follow them. Or you just go out and draft and you don't do any time on the front and you hope to get to the final sprint and get decent positioning. So you're pretty much just reacting to what others are creating. And to me, that's a crapshoot. It's basically luck. You're not going to have a consistent result time after time. But at the same time, if you don't have the fitness, there's really no choice. So I've been there. I didn't have the ability for repeated attacks, or the recoveries were long. But the more and more you work out and train, the better you get, and the more you can repeat your efforts. And the reality is I've been able to build up and burn lots of matches and still have the sprints for preems and for the final at the same or just a little less power than I would have had if I just sat in, and that's just due to continual training. So eventually, if you're able to build up your fitness through many sacrifices like time, job, family, etc., then maybe you can be in your 40s and win a local Cat 4 race. So It's it's worth it. So anyway, the point is, I did not attack when I could have, and I left that race feeling super disappointed. So a lot of my races I feel good about regardless of the outcome, as long as I left everything out on the course, as long as I did everything that I could. And so I vowed never to race that way again, where I'm essentially just sitting in and waiting, and then to learn to start being proactive and directing the race. And so the video after this is basically me attacking the group over and over again. But what that eventually leads to is a learning of like breakaways and just wearing out the group in general. You can just continually attack, and that's going to make the group hurt. And at the end of the race, you want to hope that you just have that much more, because as we recall from my earlier videos and just my fitness in general, a lot of the people are going to not have it if they're forced to work in the group. So I think that's pretty much bike racing in general. You can't just show up and hope for the best result. You need to go out there and put in the work to be consequential on the front, or be one of the influencers of the race to help you, dictate what's going to happen. And so that when the result falls in your favor, it's no longer a surprise, it's as expected. And the reason I bring all this up is kind of a revelation to how I started racing to where I am today, in the Cat 4 field, having won my first race and then getting repeated podiums after one after another. I was able to be in that top spot of the fitness to be able to then start directing and then dictating what happens in the race. So that cuts out a lot of the variables of everybody else and what they're trying to do. Of course, if people are of equal fitness, they're going to have their own ideas. But what I've been realizing and noticing is that the people that are directing, or the leaders, or those that are going off on the front, or the breakaways and the attacks, there's just less of them. So a lot of people are going to be following, and that's kind of the way life is, right? Is that there's some smaller set of leaders and then a lot more people waiting to follow. And I'm really interested in being a leader, but I've kind of lived my career in a way where you sort of just ask your boss, what do you want me to do? And then you do it, and then you just clock out. Same as like when you go to school, you're like, well, what's the assignment? Okay, I did the assignment, now what? And like the reality is, the students that I saw do the best in school are the ones that went beyond the assignment, and they were there for themselves. They kind of knew who they were. They knew what they wanted to get out of the school, and it was like they're building their portfolio, or they're building their connections, and they don't even care if they graduate. They're just there to get information, and they have a clear sight of what they want. And I've never really had a clear sight of what I wanted, except for in racing, because it's so simple. You have to just beat the clock and be at the top. So it's much easier than life as far as like the goal. It's like, well, what do you want? Well, I want to win. But I think the experience translates still. So in my career, there have been moments where I've just gone off and done my own thing, and those have been the times when I've just been the most successful. And I think it's just the way life is. So anyway, those are the thoughts from CritDad, and here we go. What's CJ up to? Chasing this back. So yeah, I just sat in a lot on this race, and after you've heard me just say everything that I've said, you can kind of tell it doesn't mix with the person I am. So I will use sitting in as a strategy for recovery, and simply if it's the right thing to do in the race. But to just wait while others do things, that's not me. Alright guys, let's skip to the point of this race where you can see the break and I don't do anything. Alright, so TJ and Major Motion start to mobilize a little attack here, and I'm at a pretty good heart rate. My max heart rate is 188, and I've been settling in, and you can see that is Aaron and William Patrick Sorry, and I could see them. And you guys have seen me attack, especially on this straight by the freeway. I have it in the race prior to this. I have it in like every race. I just snap and I go here, and I could have caught him, and I didn't do it. it bothers me. This whole race bothers me, and like, I don't want to just sit here and do bike race commentary. I'm trying something different to sort of relate this to our lives and to say more than just, this isn't just about bike racing for me. Like, I really want to say something and motivate and inspire and teach. And here I think we can see the break one more time. I mean, they're right there. I mean, just go, CritDad. Just go. But again, I gotta have compassion for myself. It's okay in the moment to be upset with yourself because you know you could have done better. I think that's valid. So here we go, one to go. Now that my race has been mentally just broken, here Chris goes, and I'm happy to see Chris off the front as a sprinter. So he knew that he was one of the stronger guys in this field and that he had to do something to bring it back. So, you know, in his team, he's not usually off the front, but I was really happy to see him up here. I snuck in their train and it's just not working. I don't want to go around him here. This is the final lap. The best thing to do at this point, if you want to sprint for the bunch, is to get behind some wheels instead of being off here in the front with 2,200 meters to go. But again, my mental is shook every time the breakaway gets away and something happens where I know I could have gone and I didn't. That's what I'm thinking about right now. So I'm sort of trying to make up for it in this way that is not going to work for the final. But one thing that was cool is Mr. Chris Howard came out and did his first crit. I've been riding with Chris for a while with Lightning Velo. Lightning Velo is a awesome group in Long Beach that meets on Saturdays at 7:30 at the Eldorado Park, which is right near, Eldorado Library, which is right near the park. And it's basically between this park and the library between my house, and that's how I've gotten into this. But no, they're an awesome group. Go out, and if you've never done bike racing at all and you want to learn about group riding, go out with them. I think I might be a member still, but it's definitely where I went when I was just learning, and they're super safe. You're going to learn about dual pace lines. You're going to learn about rotating pace lines. So shout out Lightning Velo. They're a great group. Saturdays at 7:30. You're going to do about 40 miles and do the A ride. If you're watching crit racing videos, just do their air ride. If you don't know how to do any of that and you're going like 20 miles an hour, then the B ride's right for you. But I think if you're watching these crit racing videos, then you're probably and you haven't done any of these, you know, Lightning Velo is a great resource. Yeah, go out there. Anyway, so here we are, and again, I've already been blowing matches for 1,000 meters, screwing around on the front. We will eventually talk about placement on this final bit, because that's what matters for getting into the top spot. So this isn't a horrible position. I don't have the energy, and I didn't have the power meter connected for this race. I'm going a little early here. If I have a big old tank, which I should have because I sat in a lot, but I started screwing around, as you guys saw back at the second corner. So I'm at 180 and that's it. So I'm leading out Tony behind me, and yeah, no, that was a horrible strategy, but eventually we will get there. Here comes Matt. I think Matt did pretty well in this race, and then Chris has still got it. So yeah, Chris has always got a pretty strong finish in most of these races. And there goes Avery, and oh, Lance is up there. Everyone's catted up, by the way, and I'm on my way, guys. I'm on my way. So I have nothing left here, and so I'm also mentally like, no need to sprint now. Let me see who won this one. Going through the Strava. Oh, all right, Lance got first of this bunch sprint, and then Aaron took second. Mr. Breakaway himself, but Mike Spikes, William, Patrick Sorry took the dub. Congrats, guys. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. Like, subscribe. We're at 444 subscribers. Let's go, guys. I really appreciate the group of people I have in this small little community. I don't know no one listens after the start finish anyway, so I should put this at the beginning of the video next time. But seriously, thanks for everyone who subscribed, and please comment down below, like if you have questions, if you have thoughts, or just whatever. Yeah, trying to actually say something, and just like my bike races, making these videos are also experiments, trial and error, failures, and hope to get there. So putting out another one. Let's go.
You're the fast wheel, bro. Yeah, bro. We can't do all that. Here goes the train. Woo.